Welcome. Today is your fourth session in the Apprenticing Jesus small group study, your journey to transformation. And today we're going to look at the chapter that you just read, which was chapter 3, Communing with God. One of the great questions that was asked of Jesus was in Luke 11, when one of his disciples asked him to teach them how to pray. Now, usually Jesus answered questions with a question. He very rarely answered them directly. And often, if he didn't answer it with a question, he'd answer with a parable, which caused lots of questions in and of itself. But when he was asked this question, will you teach us how to pray? He didn't answer it with the question, not this time. He immediately dove into specific instruction, not only on how to pray, but also in regards to our attitude and way of being in prayer. It's kind of like this. Someone said, will you teach us how to pray? And Jesus said, absolutely. Sit down, pull yourself up, and listen, because I've got a lot to say about this, so listen carefully. That's kind of the spirit in which he engaged this. And then he gets into all this detail on how to pray, attitudes of prayer, thinking about our relationship to God and orientation in prayer. It's amazing how much detail he gives in that. So in chapter 4, we take a look at this, especially with the daily practices that you've had for this week. Take a very deep dive into it. And if you didn't take the opportunity to engage the daily disciplines this week, I encourage you just to go back and do them, because you'll really get a lot out of them. I engage the different aspects of the Lord's Prayer or the Apprentice's Prayer on a regular basis, contemplatively. And it's a powerful opportunity to be in God's presence and be open and naked before Him with these requests and declarations He asks us to ask of Him, to connect and to be in relationship with Him, the way He knows will work the best for us. But in this chapter, we also talk about the power of language and our willingness to be in an ongoing conversation with God. King David of Israel was such a great example of this. When you read in the Psalms in the Old Testament, he would pour his heart out. The good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever was going on for them, he would put it right out with God and talk to God about it. You know, God wants all of us, every bit of us. In prayer, we get to be in conversation with Him. He loves us, and He desires to be in conversation with us where we're holding nothing back. And that's a big theme of this study on Apprenticing Jesus, how we can connect more deeply with God, more nakedly with God, more open and vulnerably with Him and with others and with ourselves. We've already discussed in a previous chapter how God's first language was silence, which is just such, I love thinking about that. But then He spoke, and how glorious it was when He did speak. And my favorite translation of John 1, Gospel of John chapter 1, captures it so beautifully. This translation says it all arose out of a conversation within God. In fact, the conversation was God. So God started the discussion, and everything came out of this, and nothing happened without consultation. This was the life that was the light of men shining in the darkness, a darkness which neither understood nor quenched its creativity. John, a man sent by God, came to remind people about the nature of the light so that they would observe. He was not the subject under discussion, but the bearer of an invitation to join in. The subject of the conversation, the original light, came into the world that had arisen out of His willingness to converse. He fleshed out the words, but the world did not understand. He came to those who knew the language, but they did not respond. Those who did respond became a new creation, His children. They read the signs and they responded. These children were born out of sharing the creative activity of God. They heard the conversations going on here, now, and took part, discovering a new way of being people. To be invited to share in a conversation about the nature of life was for them a glorious opportunity not to be missed. That's John 1, verses 1 through 14. Isn't that magnificent? Read it and think about it again in the chapter. This coming week is chapter 4, the heart of apprenticeship. And clearly, The heart of apprenticeship, we already know, includes love, which is the central theme of the gospel. For God so loved that he gave his only begotten Son. It started it all. And then God's Son tells us all of life is about loving God and loving each other. Friends, family, neighbors, even enemies. So in chapter 4, we're going to take a look at how you can deepen your connection and intimacy with God. We're going to look at praying without words and praying with words. Which praying without words, when I say that, is essentially what I'm talking about is contemplative prayer. But it's a beautiful expression of prayer, and it's a powerful transformational means of connection and communication with God. We're also in this chapter going to take a deep look at the power of request and negotiation with God and how you can utilize that to supercharge your prayer life. So enjoy. We'll see you next week.